Welcome, everyone. So, we're going to continue our discussion on control statements like the if statement. Um, and so, let's say we want to print the grade or obtained by a certain student. So let's say that our passing criteria is that a student has to obtain 60% or 60 or more than 60 marks in order to be able to pass an exam. So in that case, we could use an if statement. So we could write the pseudocode. Now, what is pseudocode? A pseudocode is basically a short way or simple way of writing code. So that is code that you could translate into any language. It does not have to be C. It could be Java. It could be Python. But pseudocode basically conveys in more human readable terms what is it that you want your program or software to do. So in this case we could have a pseudocode statement which could say something like, if student's grade is greater than or equal to 60, then print passed. Okay, now we could do this using a very simple if statement that we have seen before. And we could write this as, in C we could just write a single if statement followed by this relational operator of greater than equal to. So if grade is greater than or equal to 60, then you can use the printf function to print passed, and that's all there would be to it. Now you don't see the whole program because you don't really need that here. I mean, you would know that in order to get to this stage you should already have something like scanf underscore s in your program to input the grade basically. So that's where you get that variable from. Very simple if statement to do something. So the if statement will execute, or the statement in the body of the if statement will execute if the condition is true. Otherwise, the statements in the body will be skipped and you will go to the next statement. Now remember that the body is basically indicated by these curly braces. So it starts here and it ends here. And if you remember, I told you last time that if you have just one single statement inside the body of an if statement, then you are not really required to put these curly braces. But you have, in case you have more than one statements, then yes, you will be required to actually specify the start and end of the body of the if statement. Otherwise, C will only consider the first statement to be part of the body of the if statement. Okay, so let's look at this in terms of a flowchart. So flowcharts are generally useful if we just want to see graphically what is happening or taking place in our program. And it's kind of like pseudocode. You could look at a flow chart and translate it into C, or you could also translate it in some other language. So in this case, the diamond basically indicates a decision block. So this is an if statement. So if the grade is greater than equal to 60, so if this condition is true, you will print passed, and then you will go to the next line. Now, if this is false, you will not do anything and you will go to the next line that you see after the body of the if statement. Right. Now, sometimes you're in situations where just using a single if statement is not enough. So, let's say you're in a situation where you want to do something if the if condition is true, and if it's not true, then you want to do something else. So, in the previous examples, we were only doing something if in case the if statement, the condition inside the if statement was true, but we were not doing anything else if it wasn't true. So we weren't doing anything. But if you actually have, sometimes you're in a situation where you want to do something if the statement or the condition is false. So in that case, you can use what is called an if else statement. And what does an if else statement do? Well, an if else statement does something if its condition is true, and it does something else if the condition is false. So we can say, let's say in this example, so if student grade is greater than or equal to 60, we print passed. And if it's not greater than or equal to 60, we can use the else keyword. So what that means is, okay, well, if the statement or if the condition is not satisfied, so if this condition is not satisfied, print failed. Okay. So it's similar, very similar, but has a subtle difference, and you can use it in different situations depending on whether you need it or not. So if you want to write it in terms of C code, you can write this as if grade is greater than or equal to 60, print F passed, else, so otherwise, which otherwise is if the grade is not greater than or equal to 60, print failed. Okay. And then again, just like the if statement, the else statement has a body. This body can have multiple statements. Right now it has only one, and that body needs to be enclosed inside curly braces. Okay, so if you want to look at the flow chart of this, the flow chart basically, again, you have your condition being tested here inside this diamond, and the condition is grade is greater than or equal to 60. If the condition is true, you print passed. If the condition is false, you print failed, and then you go to the next statement, which comes after the body of the if and the else statement ends. Okay, now sometimes if you have really short statement, and typically a single statement that you need to execute inside an if statement and an else statement, then you can actually use a short abbreviated version of the if else statement, which is called the conditional operator. And this is useful in cases where you have small statements that you need to execute, typically only a single statement maybe inside an if. So you have if statement 1 and else statement 2. You can basically replace this if else block by what is known as the conditional operator, which basically uses the question mark and a colon. So we'll look at how this works, but it allows you to replace if else statement and write them as only a single line statement. So let's look at that. So the previous statement that you saw, if grade was greater than or equal to 60, you wanted to print passed. If it was not, then you wanted to print failed. Now using so you recently saw how to write that using an if else statement. Now if you want to write that using a conditional operator, you can first write the condition. So the condition is grade greater than or equal to 60. if this condition is true, so what you want to do is execute the statement that follows the question mark. So if this is true, you will put or put string past, because this is inside a put s, and if this is false, then you will go and you will send or return what is called the failed string. So if grade is greater than or equal to 60, then passed will be printed. If not, then failed is going to be printed. Okay, so this allows you to replace the if else with a single line of statement, so you can actually write this, and it's generally very convenient at times. Another way of writing this is, if you wanted to make it easy to read for yourself, at least you could also write this as, okay, check the condition, and this is an easier version of, or easy to read, or more at least friendly to beginners version of this statement on this slide. So what is it doing? Grade, so it's testing this condition. If the condition is true, it will execute this, so it will put string past and show it to you on screen. If the statement is false, then it will basically print this string failed on screen. Okay, now sometimes we also want to use what are called nested if else statement. So an example of this could be, let's say you want to print an A grade when a student has a grade greater than or equal to 90. Otherwise, if the grade is not greater than or equal to 90 but is still greater than or equal to 80, right? So if it's not greater than equal to 90, then it has to be less than equal to 90, and within that less than equal to 90, if so, else if it's greater than or equal to 80, then you want to print the B grade. If it's less than 80 but greater than or equal to 70, then you want to print C grade, and then so on and so forth for the D grade, and then finally F when it's less than 60. So you can write this using if else or nested if else statement. So if student's grade is greater than or equal to 90, you print A, else, so otherwise, so if it's not greater than 90 or greater than or equal to 90, so if it's less than 90, so if it's else, if it's less than 90 but it's greater than or equal to 80, then you want to print B. Otherwise, if it's less than 80, then you want to print C if it's above or equal to 70. So you get these nested if statements followed by else and then if statement. So within each else statement, you're putting another if statement. So that makes, gives you more options and check for more conditions. And if you wanted to write this as pseudocode as C code, then this is what it will look like. So it looks okay. The only disadvantage is that you are increasing this indentation, and that indentation basically makes your code a bit more difficult to read or cumbersome to read. So typically people, what they tend to do is they use something else, which is generally called the else if. So what they do is they basically remove this space between, or line spacing between the else and the if, and they show that. So this is a better way of writing this. So you could basically put this as else space if grade is greater than or equal to 70, then you put B. Otherwise, greater than or equal to 80, then you print B. Otherwise, it's greater than or equal to 70, you print C. So what will happen in this is, when you get grade, now if this grade happens to be greater than or equal to 90, you will go into the body of the first if statement, you will print A, and then you will exit the whole else if blocks. You will not go and test these conditions, because if any one of these conditions is satisfied, the other ones will be false. Okay, so now let's go into, so let's say you get grade is maybe 85. So now once grade is 85, you check the first statement, it's not greater than 90, so you go into the second statement, which is again an else statement. So yes, it's not greater than equal to 90, but is it greater than equal to 80? Yes, it is. So you go in here, you print B, and then you come out of it and you don't check any other conditions. You come down here. Similarly, if it's something like maybe 75, you will come in here, you will print C, and then you will exit and come down here. Okay. So that's how you basically compound these statements, and that's, I think, pretty much if statements and if else and else if statements covered. So that gives you a lot of tools to actually make a lot of different decisions. And then finally, this is just illustrating that you can have multiple statements inside the body of an else block or if block. So yeah, I mean, you can do that, but we've already discussed this. So this looks like a good place to stop. So thank you.